This is an Economy of One with Gary Rathbun.
This is our country.
Joining me now, we finally tracked her down, Dr. Betsy McCaughey. She's the chairman of Reduce Infection Deaths and a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research. She's also the former lieutenant governor of New York State and author of one of my favorite books, Beating Obamacare. Betsy, it's been a while. Welcome back to the show.
It has been, but you forgot to mention my most important credential, a good friend of Gary's.
Well, I assume that's a given,
Right.
So, it's been a long
Nice to
time.
talk
How
with
you
you.
been?
Very well. The Obama administration is keeping all of us freedom lovers extremely busy.
Well, you'll never be out of work as long as we have people like that in office, I'm sure. I wanted to touch base with you on a couple things. Of course, I wanted to get an update on Obamacare. It's been several months since we've talked about that, and
the great news is Obamacare is collapsing.
Yes.
I can say it with real confidence. First of all, when you look at the enrollments this year, they've added fewer than 1 million new enrollees and no improvement at all in their quest to attract young, healthy enrollees.
Right.
And the result of that is that Obamacare is really in a death spiral. The costs of covering the people who have enrolled far exceeds what they're paying, even with the taxpayers paying most of it. Mm-hmm. And so the large insurers are losing billions a year, Gary, on these plans. And the Big Five have made it known that they're heading for the exits at the end of this year. They're going to just abandon selling these Obamacare exchange plans unless something changes, because they're losing billions of dollars on them, and they're not in the business of losing their shareholders' money.
Right. And we talked about that on air. I think it was United Healthcare was in the headlines a while back.
Well, United, Aetna, Humana, Anthem, Blue Cross Blue Shield, they've all said that they can't make money selling these plans. Yeah,
well, and the Obamacare limits their profitability and that kind of stuff. Being the cynic that I am, and the somewhat jaundiced view of everything, my first thought was, no way is United Healthcare or Aetna, these guys, getting out. This is their public plea to get more taxpayer dollars to subsidize things.
Well, that was the strategy. You got it. You know, you've outsmarted them. You know that. But the fact is, Republicans control both houses of Congress.
Right.
And they really, for a change, and I have to say it's for a change because those Republicans in Washington don't show backbone very often.
That's right.
But they did. They put their foot down and said, we are not going to bail out these insurance companies. We're not going to provide billions of dollars more in taxpayer funding, backdoor funding, to make up for these losses. So it appears as if the insurance companies, they keep getting these vague promises from the Obama administration, but nothing concrete and no real money.
Do you think, and it's just you and me talking, do you think it's actually going to, the Affordable Care Act, do you think it's going to be repealed and go away? Or is it here to stay?
It depends on the election.
Yeah.
It depends entirely on the election. If a Republican wins the White House, yes, Obamacare will be repealed very quickly. Otherwise, I can tell you this, there will never be another Republican election. There will not be another Republican victory if the Republicans fail to repeal Obamacare very soon after they take office.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Betsy, it took us a while to get a hold of you. I'm coming up on a break. Can you hang on through the break? I want to talk to you about
my pleasure.
One of the dictates.
I apologize.
Oh, not a problem.
There was a little mixed signal here.
Yeah.
It happens.
Yeah, not a problem. I'm glad to have you. I'm Gary Rathbun. This is an Economy of One.
This is an Economy of One with Gary Rathbun.
We're spending some time with Dr. Betsy McCaughey, former lieutenant governor of the state of New York and author of Beating Obamacare, and yes, a good friend of me and my show. So really appreciate her being here. Betsy, I wanted to touch on, I know our time is somewhat short, but one of the things that came out in the last week, and I think he even wrote about it in one of your columns was the new dictate coming out of the White House about employers with more than 100 employees.
Oh, this is such bad news, Gary. If you are a white male looking for a job, your search just got a lot harder.
Yeah.
It's a proposed rule. It's not in effect yet, but they've printed it up in the Federal Register, and I hope people will actually send in their comments. I'm not sure this particular administration ever responds to public outrage, but there should be public outrage, and not just from white men, from anybody who goes to work in the morning and tries to do a good job and wants to be promoted or given a raise based on merit. May the best man or woman win. Remember that concept?
Right.
But now the EEOC, a federal agency, and the Labor Department says that employers with 100 or more employees, I'm sure that includes you, right? You're going to have to send a report in every year, and you're going to have to report your employees, categorize them by their race, their ethnicity, and their gender, right? In 12 salary bands. So what's going to happen is the EEOC and the Labor Department are going to look at this, and if you have too many white guys near the top in, say, the 10th salary band or the 11th salary band, and not enough others in those bands, the presumption is you are guilty of discrimination. Never mind that those people might have more seniority or more education. They've done a great job for you. It doesn't matter. So, of course, here's the situation. If you're an employee and you've worked all year to get a raise, and then the time comes and you look at that salary band above yours and there are already 5 white guys in that salary band and not enough women or not enough Hispanics, you can't get that raise. Tough luck. It's got to go to somebody else regardless of how hard you worked.
Absolutely incredible. And I was reading this, and I first thought of 2 things. 100 more workers. That'll come down to the size of companies that I own. Okay, it'll eventually come all the way down to 10, 20, 30 employees.
Oh, yeah, it's going to affect everybody.
And 2, to me, it's a variation or the same thought process, the same mentality as minimum wage. It doesn't matter what your qualifications are. It doesn't matter what you negotiate with your employer or potential employer. It's all based on some government bureaucrat determining whether I'm running my business properly for their specifications or not.
Well, and it's so insidiously divisive. Can you imagine how people who work together feel when they know they see somebody else who's going to get that raise who's newer or doesn't do as good a job or goes home early, all the time, but they need more of that category in the upper age band. And there's also something, and I tell you, I was watching the Super Bowl last week, and I thought of this. Here the Denver Broncos run out onto the field, right? 72% black. And nobody's saying where are the Asian players, right? So it seems to be very one-sided.
Well, and way back, Ayn Rand said that the biggest minority in the United States is the individual businessman.
Oh, you make my heart beat when you mention Ayn Rand.
She's my favorite author. No offense, my favorite dead author. Let's put it that way. And but as a business owner and a businessman, you know what? My mandate, my phrase that I always say about the government is leave me alone. Leave me alone. Let me sink or swim on my own. I will make decisions. I will create stuff, and I will hire who I want to hire, and I will fire who I want to fire. And but
of course, the federal government doesn't believe in firing anybody. That's the trouble with our civil service.
That's right.
You see it at the VA. You see it at the IRS. There's a bureaucracy there, ironically called the Merit System Protection Board. It protects everything but merit.
Well, I got to tell you a quick story, and I tell my listeners about my own people. I have a great office for my primary business, and I gave out Christmas bonuses to everybody, as I always do. And I got an office manager who's been with me a while, and she came to me and she says, we need to eliminate the Christmas bonus. And I said, why is that? And she said, because I want my bonus based on merit. I want to earn it. It ticks me off when I got that check. And I thought, you know what? Here's the type of employee I want. She wants
Absolutely.
to earn the bonus, you know.
I thought you were going to tell me all that hogwash about you can't say Christmas.
Oh, no.
It's
no.
not going to be a winter bonus.
No. If there's
That'll
one
be
thing
next, Gary.
one thing that is well known in my office, and that is I am not politically correct.
Good.
So
I had no doubt about it. Speaking of politically correct, though, I wanted to mention something about Bernie Sanders, since he's
Sure.
really in the spotlight now after the New Hampshire primary.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, Bernie has made quite a big deal out of claiming that he is out front protecting the vets, right? You heard it as he was campaigning through New Hampshire, which happens to have a very high veteran population.
Mm-hmm.
But the states he's going to now, South Carolina, Nevada, they do too. South Carolina, I think, has 8 military bases. So he's out there claiming that he is the defender of the vets.
Right.
But I looked into this a little more closely, and in fact, he has sabotaged every effort in Congress to reform the VA and actually put vets in the driver's seat, let them decide where to get their care. He has blocked every attempt to make a real choice program for vets because he is in the pocket of the public sector unions.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he killed the Rubio bill, I think.
Right.
And
right. And then he destroyed the so-called Omnibus Veterans Access and Choice and Accountability Act. He insisted on putting provisions in there that made it virtually impossible for vets to actually use that choice card. You might as well just take a match to it.
That's incredible. And that's one of those things that is a hot topic with the American people, because in recent years, it seems like the American people, the general electorate, the populace, have grown a greater appreciation for our vets and existing service people that we didn't see. You know, you and I are similar. I mean, my war that I almost got drafted in was Vietnam.
Right.
And
people had a bitter taste in their mouth.
Oh my goodness, yes.
It was a terrible thing for those vets. But now we've been reminded that we owe them everything.
Absolutely. And you know, it's refreshing to see that no matter where vets are interviewed, people always thank them for their service.
Right, as they should.
But
here is Sanders being a real two-face. On the one hand, not that too many Sanders voters will ever listen to your show.
Let's hope not.
I'm whistling in the wind here.
Yeah.
But the fact is, he poses as the savior of the vets, but he put in provisions in that law that make it virtually impossible. Yeah. You have to live 40 miles away from a VA. You have to wait more than 30 days. And here's the real clincher. You have to get a letter from the Secretary of the VA attesting to the fact that you live more than 40 miles away and you've waited more than 30 days. Can you imagine trying to get that letter?
Oh, it'll take you 9 months to get that letter.
Right. And then if you get an appointment with a civilian doctor, the doctor has to call the VA and get prior approval before beginning to treat you. Imagine that doctor waiting on hold, thinking that the VA is actually going to pick up that phone, right?
Yeah.
No chance. And then here's the kicker, and this was definitely Sanders who did this. He insisted that even if you get you get treatment from the civilian doctor, you have to go back to the VA after 60 days. Your choice card is only good for 60 days. So whoever heard of curing cancer in 60 days?
Yeah.
This is such hypocrisy.
Yeah. Well, and once again, it shows that they don't walk the talk, that the talk of respecting our veterans is different than what they actually do.
Right.
They don't really respect our veterans.
Yeah, he sabotaged them because the more vets use the VA, the more public sector jobs there are, and he's in bed with the public sector unions.
Absolutely incredible.
What a shame. Yeah. What a shame that happened.
Yeah
I get emails from vets every day asking for help.
Absolutely incredible. We're speaking with Betsy McCaughey, chairman of Reduce Infection Deaths and a senior fellow at the London Center for Policy Research and the author of Beating Obamacare. Betsy, I know we're out of time. It seems like it flew by. I wish I could could keep you for an hour or so. I hope we can tap you on the shoulders again soon.
Love to. Your show is a public service, even if the Democrats aren't listening.
Well, thank you. You're most kind. So, we will talk to you again soon. I promise I won't make it as long this time in between. So,
bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks, Betsy. Dr. Betsy McCaughey, author of the book Beating Obamacare 2014. I'm Gary Rathbun. It's an Economy of One.
This is our country.